Hi, I'm Mia, a voiceover and marketing student from Whaler's Creation. Hey, we have a great show streaming on all social media networks called FamVersations. It's a talk for teens. Hi, I'm Mia, a voiceover and marketing student from Whaler's Creation. Hey, we have a great show streaming on all social media networks called FamVersations. It's a talk for teens and young adults. We meet with local professionals from Las Vegas and all over the United States. They share their success stories, challenges, and greatest achievements. Turn us on every Friday at 3 p.m. Foster, adopt, mentor.
Hi, thank you for joining us today. You have joined us with FamVersations. We are a talk show that meets with professionals from Las Vegas and all over the United States. Today, I'm excited because I have Nick Delta, Penta Delta,
Dela Pena.
Della Pena joining us today. And he is one of the founding partners for the Great Greek Mediterranean Restaurants. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, but we're going to get to know a little bit more about this amazing father, husband, wife, and businessman. So sit back and enjoy. Nick, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super excited for people to get to know you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about today.
Fantastic, fantastic. So I want to start our conversation off with you telling us a little bit about your early years.
In business?
Well, no, personally.
Oh, okay. Personally, so I was born in Massachusetts to what I thought was a normal family. I had two parents at home, a mother and a father, and I had two brothers and a sister. And I was raised what I felt like was a normal childhood, what I knew as a normal childhood. Played sports with my brothers, played catch in the front yard with dad. It was a great childhood. We lived in a small town. Everyone knew everyone. And I had what I thought to be was just a normal, great childhood.
Hmm. And so after childhood,
Yeah, we moved to Houston, Texas from Massachusetts, and that's where I started high school. I went on to do college in Texas as well. And then I got out into the workforce.
mhm,
I was eager to get working. I was eager to start my career. I didn't quite know what my career was going to be. It
mhm.
took a couple different turns and twists. But I got into the workforce in Houston, and I was focused on my career. I wasn't too concerned about starting a family too early. That just wasn't my focus at the time. I wanted to focus on building a career, and that's what I did.
So what was your first job?
So my first job out of college, I was selling medical supplies, which I didn't enjoy. It was helping my father do his business. I wasn't good at it, and I quickly found out that sales really wasn't for me. Um, then I went to school for finance, and I thought I wanted to take over Wall Street and be
All
a
right.
financial tycoon, right? I went to Wall Street for a week. I visited my brother who was working on Wall Street, and I came running back to Houston with my tail between my legs because it wasn't for me. At least New York
Interesting.
wasn't for me. But I thought I could still do the stockbroker thing in Houston. So I got hired as a stockbroker, got all my licenses. I went to work for a firm that wasn't a big firm, and I came back to the Houston office after training, and they closed the Houston office a week into my stockbroker career. So then I was going to move to Chicago with the same firm, but I needed to make some money first. So I fell back into bartending, which is what I did all through college to put myself through college. So I was going to start bartending in Houston, make some money, and then move to Chicago. That was the plan.
Mhm.
Um, just before I was supposed to move to Chicago, they offered me a management position in this place where I was working, and that's when food and beverage and hospitality, my career started.
Wow, I love that. And here we are today. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the later part of our conversation. But you mentioned a little bit about going to college. Like, what did you go to school for?
So again, I wanted, it was business. I was, finance. I didn't know if I was going to be more the stock market, real estate. There was a couple different avenues to go through with the finance degree.
Hmm.
And I really was always interested in the market and investing and things like that. So that's something that I really thought I wanted to do. As you know, things turned, finance is always something that you can use in any business. As I got into business and
Absolutely.
food and beverage and hospitality and knowing numbers and how to work with numbers. So you know, I don't want to say that you know, college was a waste, but I used everything I did in college in what I did today. It just didn't turn out to be my career in the financial industry.
And not only that, a lot of times when young people are looking at going to college, first of all, college is not for everybody, and we do recognize that, and we do want to, you know, encourage young people to go to school, go to college if that's something you want to do, but not every career requires a college degree. Like, we're going to talk again a little bit more about how you got into being a partner for your restaurants, which I'm super excited to know a little bit more about.
Right.
But in the interim of you starting out in the restaurant business, like what was your first job?
Again, it was bartending. I'm a third generation restaurateur with my father and grandfather. And again, it was right out of high school when I was in Texas, and my dad said, "Let me teach you how to bartend." And I didn't know why he wanted to teach me. I didn't think it would ever serve me any good. But he said, "It's just a trade. You never know, you might have to fall back on." So I said, well, you know, being that I want to listen to my father, and he's always had some great advice for me. I said, okay, I'll learn how to bartend. Didn't have a great desire to learn how to do it, but he taught me, and thank heavens he did, because
And third generation, I didn't know that. That was in your blood.
it is. It's in the family blood, and that's what my family's done. But again, I always had my eye on more of a finance thing. But yeah, I mean, when I went back to school, I had to find a job to put myself through college. I didn't have scholarships. My parents didn't have the funds to put me through school. So I got a job bartending, and for 3.5 years, that's what I did to get myself. If I didn't know how to bartend, I certainly would have not have finished college. There's no question.
That is amazing. And one of the things that, you know, we were told that Las Vegas doesn't have like a really high high school graduation rate. You know, we're towards the bottom for all states in the all 50 states, which is not something to brag about, but it's a fact. And we're told that bartenders in Las Vegas can make $80,000 a year bartending. Would you agree with that, or do you think that's people just like stretching it a little bit?
Oh, that's conservative in some places. I mean, I know some bartenders that are well into the six figures. Food servers in some of these finer dining restaurants that are amazing at what they do, well into the six figures.
Wow.
No, I mean, if you're, look, whatever you do as a profession, if you're passionate about it and you choose the right field, I don't want to say it's limitless, but you can be well into six figures as a bartender, as a food server. Especially in Las Vegas, where where we're fortunate, to have the industry that we have. But it's 80,000 is very conservative.
Wow. Well, you heard it from a very reliable source. Not trying to encourage you to do that, but it is real. I always wondered if that was a true statement or if people were just exaggerating. So.
No, I mean, again, especially if you're working in the casinos where it's union scale, so your hourly wage is $15, $18 an hour. I'm not sure where it is now.
Really, for bartenders?
Absolutely.
Wow.
That's a trained, skilled profession, and so they're making $15 to $18 an hour as it is on top of the tips that they make. It's a very lucrative position.
Wow, very good. And so tell me a little bit about some of the things on a personal note that you're passionate about.
So personally, I've always, when I was in Houston, like I said, starting a family for me early wasn't what I wanted to do. So, but I always wanted to be a little more involved with the youth. So I did volunteer at Big Brothers and Sisters. That was my first foray into mentoring. And I did that for a year in Houston, had an amazing little brother, had a great time. Then I moved to Las Vegas, and I immediately got back into the program because I had such a great experience when I was when I was in Houston.
Awesome.
And got a little brother and had him for about 7 years here in Las Vegas.
Wow.
And just formed a great bond and a great relationship. And it really, at first when you're trying to connect with a 7-year-old, as a 30-year-old trying to connect with a 7-year-old, never been a father, not around a lot of kids, it was a little bit of a chore to understand what he expected from our relationship, what I was supposed to do, what he understood from from the conversation perspective. So, but it became really a passion, after a couple years. Then I looked, not that I never didn't look forward to it, but it was always a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling. What are we going to do today? What are we going to talk about? And then later on, when I got to know him much better, I really looked forward to our meetings and spending those 3-4 hours a week with him. And then the conversations got a little deeper and got more mentoring kind of stuff and not just surface level conversations. So that was always kind of, I always wanted to try to give back in some way, whatever way I could. I back then I wasn't making a lot of money, so monetary donations weren't kind of what I could do, but I had time. And, without having to sacrifice time from my family, being single, I could spend it with a little brother and try to help him out. So it was a real passion of mine for several years. And it was kind of selfish because I enjoyed it, I think, more than he did. After we had our meetings, I really just enjoyed our time.
Wow, I love that. I especially love people who give back that way because, there's an article that we have coming out in our magazine for the next issue coming up, and it talks about that very thing, how just giving a little bit of your time can literally change the trajectory, can change the life scope of a young person. And that's really what we're trying to do here. By bringing in these professionals to talk to our young people, we're really just trying to give you some insights that everybody has their own humble beginnings to that road to success. And we want to hear. What did it take for you to become successful? What did it take for Nick to have that desire, that passion? Now, he was born into the restaurant business and just happened to walk around it for a while before he stumbled back into the restaurant business. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
The Great Greek.
Right.
Like, how did you stumble into that position? And are there any opportunities or circumstances that you can talk about where it was a struggle at first, but you still overcame those struggles?
Well, yeah. I mean, once I realized that hospitality and food and beverage was going to be my career, which again, I think a lot of times our careers choose us and we don't choose our careers. And I think in this perspective,
Wow.
no, I mean, I think that the hospitality business chose me. I didn't necessarily choose it because I was taught how to bartend by my father, who said it was a skill you might need later, and it proved, but it was a means to an end. I was going to get out and take over Wall Street. Well, that didn't happen, and I fell back into it, and it chose me. Now, I had passion for it. I didn't know it at the time, but I had passion for it. But again, a lot of times our careers choose us, and we don't choose our careers. And I think this career chose me. I'm thankful that I had passion for it, and I was able to get it to where I am today. And for 30 years or so, I worked for someone else. I was in the casinos. I had the insurance and the 401k program, and everything was safe and no risk. When at 50 years old, my next door neighbor knocked on my door and said, "You want to buy a restaurant?" And
What?
yeah, and my answer was no. I'm working at MGM. I was literally starting my job the next day, which I thought was going to be my last job ever, the vice president of food and beverage at the Excalibur Hotel for MGM Resorts.
Wow.
And I'm 50 years old, and I don't need to take a risk and go out there. After about 8 months, it just wasn't the culture for me. And I decided at this time, now I'm married with 2 children, I had to take a calculated risk. And my wife was very supportive. And we found this restaurant called the Great Greek, and it was a risk. But my partner was in real estate, knew nothing about restaurants. But after looking at it, I knew it was a solid business, that something that we could potentially grow to a couple units in Las Vegas and have a nice little business for ourselves. But make no mistake about it, I was taking a step back from a pay perspective. I was betting on myself to be successful and to get back to where I was earning, when I was working, with the Excalibur. So, but I took that calculated risk, and it's paid off in spades.
Well, I like what you just said. You said, I bet on myself. And that is a key message that I'd like to definitely send out in the universe, because if you don't believe that you can, you can't. But if you believe that you can, all things are possible.
There's no question. Again, I've never owned it, right? I've been an operator. I've worked and all that stuff, and I felt like I was, fairly good at my job, and I was a good steward for the people that I worked for, and I took care of it, and I felt like it was my own. But when I decided to go out on my own, it's next level ownership. I mean, it's actual ownership. But people say take ownership of your job, and I felt like I did that working for other people. But again, it took 30 years of experience. It took me longer than most to have the courage to go out on my own, and bet on myself. There's people at 20 years old that bet on themselves and take that risk and be that entrepreneur and do that thing. It took me a little while longer. I'm not as brave as some of these folks, but again, it was a calculated risk, and I was betting on myself, and I had supreme confidence in my abilities that, if I could be the vice president of food and beverage for a casino on the Strip,
Right.
I can manage this one little restaurant that had
Wow.
12 employees.
Wow.
I could figure that out. But like I say, we did it, and I wish I did it 30 years ago, but I probably wouldn't have been as successful because I didn't have those life experiences. But I'm so glad I finally took that plunge and did it.
So what advice would you give a young person that that really wants to bet on themselves, but don't necessarily have the backing or the knowledge, or what they see in their mind, maybe the support? Although, because everybody has to have somebody behind them to be successful.
Sure.
Nobody is successful by themselves. It just doesn't happen that way.
Right.
So what advice would you give a young person who want to bet on themselves,
Right.
but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think and it just be patient, because if there's an opportunity that's right in front of you, and a lot of times you think that's the best opportunity you're ever going to get, it may not be, and you might not be ready for that at the time. Great example of patience. I applied for the vice president of food and beverage position at the Excalibur Hotel 7.5 years before getting it. The job was open 7.5 years ago. I applied for that position. I felt like I was ready for that position. I didn't get selected. I was upset. I was disappointed. I felt like I was more than ready for that spot, but I was not selected. I then was hired just a few months later as vice president of food and beverage out in one of the Laughlin casinos, which obviously not as big of a project, not as big of a company. So I went out there, my first vice president job. And it was soon after that, when I was working down there, that I was so not ready for that job. I wasn't ready even for that job in Laughlin. And then 7.5 years later, when I applied and ultimately got the job as vice president at Excalibur, then I was ready. And I almost felt embarrassed that how did I think I was so ready 7.5 years ago when I didn't have the experience? Could I have figured it out? Maybe. Would I have figured it out, in enough time to be successful? I'm not sure. But just be patient. Today we're in this society of instant gratification and coming out of college and getting a $90,000 a year job as the senior analyst for this, that, and the other. I mean, in order to be successful, you have to kind of go follow the process. A lot of the people who fail get to that spot too quick and don't have that life experience. So, betting on yourself is amazing. be calculated. Take that calculated risk, and you don't have to make sure. You don't have to be 50 to take that risk. You can be, but have that. Do the calculation. Just see if it makes sense at this time. There's going to be another opportunity down the line. You don't have to jump at that opportunity. You know, it's like anything else. When you're buying a house, you think that's the perfect house, and you don't get it. You're going to find a better one 2 weeks later. So don't get disappointed. Don't get down on yourself if you pass on that opportunity, because something better is going to come down the line. So just be patient. Just be patient. Be calculated and be patient.
I like that. Man, you have all these cute little sayings that I'm going to just like keep picking up on. So if a young person watching is interested in going into the food industry, now we have a program, our culinary arts training program, where we provide job skills training and teaching kids how to cook, literally. I'll tell you, the program started because one day I was eating my mother's sweet potato pie. And as I was eating it, I got ready to take a bite, and a thought came to me. Kids who are removed away from their families quite often will not have those family traditions and those things that's passed on. And I thought, wow, it would be nice to teach a young person how to make like food that's like culturally connecting them, and or that it's an old family recipe. You know, I wanted to teach them how to cook. And my board chair at the time was a restaurateur. And I went to him and I said, let's start a culinary arts program. Of course. He was like, that's a no-brainer. Let's do it. And we started the program, and we have been doing this program for 4 years now. And teaching kids how to cook is a passion of mine. So after we have these young people trained, and we have these young people that have gone through the training program, what do you think would be the best way for them to like follow in your footsteps, or someone who has become successful in the restaurant business? What is a good way for them to start in the food industry?
Right. I mean, look, nowadays, you know, if you have any passion for food, there's plenty opportunities. Almost every restaurant, every casino is hiring. I mean, if you have a passion for food, again, I'm going to go back to kind of the patience things. There's a lot of entry-level positions, you know. Again, when I came to town here, I was assistant beverage manager. I didn't start off as a vice president or a director or anything like that. So, you know, there's a ton of entry-level positions. And again, you know, you know, if you want to go into the big casinos, that's fine. There's a tremendous amount of training that goes on there. There's a lot of structure. So you can learn a lot from that. You know, obviously being now kind of the independence and being, you know, not part of the big companies, I enjoy this a lot more. I think there's more freedom. I think there's more opportunity to advance faster. Because if you go into the casino model or into the bigger companies, a lot of times there's a lot of structure, and you have to work a certain amount of time to get a certain amount of raise, and it's a 2% after a year, and some of these very structured kind of places where you either from an earning perspective or a position perspective. I can tell you at the Great Greek, when we've given raises to people that have been on the job for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Just because we identified that we you know, this person is overperforming and we want to keep them on board. And we've promoted them from dishwasher to a prep cook in a month and given them a $2 raise. So, you know, going out into some of these independent restaurants, you can advance quicker and earn more raises and things like that and promotions much quicker than going into the bigger casinos where and the bigger companies that have more of a structured, regimented, red tape kind of a thing. Now, you get a tremendous amount of training, great life experiences, learn from some of the, you know, best people in the world working in these casinos. So, you know, there's kind of a give and take. You can go the smaller route and be in smaller restaurants and maybe advance a little quicker, but you'll get some amazing training and work with some amazing people. I was in the casinos for 20 years. I wouldn't give it back for anything. Some of the training and coaching and the mentors in my life that got me to where I am today, I don't think I'd be here without that. That being said, you know, again, if you want to go the other route, there's nothing wrong with that. You can meet a mentor in a mom and pop restaurant that has 6 employees. Right. It doesn't have to be the VP of food and beverage at some big casino. So mentors come in all shapes and sizes, as you know way better than I do.
And this is why we do virtual mentoring, because we want people like our dear friend Nick to, just so into you guys so that you are experiencing what he has experienced without the sweat, the hard work, sweat and tears. That is to come though. You got to put that time in to be successful, because nothing ventured, nothing gained. So Nick, we're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
And then when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about something I'm very passionate about that you can shed a light on.
Okay.
So, FamVersation, we'll be right back.
You're listening to FamVersations, conversations with local businesses and professionals from all across Las Vegas and the United States. FamVersations, foster, adopt, mentor, investing in lives of youth.
Live streaming on social media is the best new way to interact and bond with your community. Do you love to encourage, motivate, and empower others, but you do not know how? Well, your opportunity starts with us on social media shows. We have 20 shows a week live streamed across the globe, with a reach of over 80,000 and growing. So you can host your own show, and you can be anything you want to be. So let's bring the community together, and let's bring the world to you. Join us now.
Hi, I'm Lataria Kern, founder and executive director for Family Arts at Whalers Creation. For us, family means foster, adopt, mentor, investing in lives of youth, and arts is the job training we provide youth. Please join us every Friday at 3 o'clock on the YouTube Whalers Creation channel, because we're interviewing local business and professionals from Las Vegas and all across the United States. Join us every Friday at 3 o'clock for FamVersations.
Hi, I'm Mia, a voiceover and marketing student from Whalers Creation.
Hi,
Hey,
welcome back
we have
to
a great show
FamVersation,
streaming on all
a
social
Whalers
media networks
Creation,
called FamVersations.
YouTube,
It's a talk for
social
teens
media,
and young adults. We
Instagram,
meet with local
and
professionals
other
from Las
outlet
Vegas
talk
and
shows.
all over the
Today,
United
joining
States.
me is
They share
Nick
their success stories,
Dela,
challenges,
Pena,
and
who
greatest
is an
achievements.
amazing
Turn us on every
person
Friday at 3
as a
p.m.
person in general,
Foster, adopt,
entrepreneur,
mentor.
father, and mentor. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the fathering side of Nick. Nick is an adopted parent. He's adopted two beautiful baby girls, and want to talk a little bit about that experience.
Okay.
So how was that? How was that for you?
Well, it was amazing. And again, I want to go back a little bit to what I said earlier when I was growing up. And, I meant no disrespect to anyone when I said I was growing up in a normal household. It's just what I knew and the only thing I knew. And that's why I got into mentoring, is as I grew up, as I became a young adult and beyond, I understood that there's not a normal, that there are different, family structures. And that's why I wanted to get into mentoring. And that's why I got into that, big brothers and sisters. And when I finally got married at 39 years old,
Which is a great age to get married, by the way. You hear me, son?
so I got married at 39, and my wife was about 14 years younger than I. But so we had a great 4, 5, 6 years of marriage, traveling, doing whatever, and then we decided to start a family. That wasn't happening naturally. We tried with some help with fertilization and things of that nature. That was unsuccessful. And at that point, we started talking about adoption as we were going down the fertility road. And after about 3 or 4 years of unsuccessful fertility treatments, we decided that adoption was the route we were going to take. We went into it, with both feet, and we adopted our first daughter. Was an amazing experience, just amazing. As soon as she understood, she knew she was adopted. We didn't want to have any secrets and any family secrets, and that went so well, we decided we're going to go back and do it again.
Wow.
And we didn't choose a gender, didn't choose anything, and we got another girl. So, again, they couldn't look any more different from each other. They're both beautiful in their own way. They both know their story. They're both proud of their story. We're proud of them as well. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't feel like they're not my daughters.
Absolutely.
There's not a real mother or a real father or or anything
your babies.
else.
They're your babies, period.
They're my girls, and that's who they are.
That's right.
And nothing's ever going to change that.
That's right.
They know that. My daughter turned 12 yesterday, as we talked about.
Happy birthday.
And we talked about her adoption story, and then when we got the phone call and when we drove to pick her up, and again, it was an amazing experience. And what I like to say is that my wife and I couldn't create a life, but maybe we saved the couple.
Wow.
So
Nick, here is another saying. I'm loving it. I have a girlfriend who, when we go out and do all these fun things together, and when we hear like little comments that we like, we started collecting them, and we said we're going to write a book of quotes.
Right.
It hasn't happened yet, but you have a lot of them.
Well,
So, being an adopted parent, any challenges or any concerns that you've had either before or after?
before there was some concerns of the unknown, right? Again, it's that risk taking, like the business thing. It's the unknown. Is there going to be any medical history that we don't know about? Are there complications throughout the pregnancy that we're unaware of? Is there going to be some future thing that we could lose our daughter? So, there was always that concern of the unknown. And that was my only real concern. Again, when I held the girl the first time, they were never leaving me. I mean, that wasn't ever going to happen. But was there fear? There was a little fear of the unknown and what's going to happen, what could happen. Of course, early on, in a couple trying times, the daughters of, should I be a part of this family? Is that, and we've gone through some of those things, but nothing ever to the extent of questioning whether we did the right thing, questioning whether they were ever going to be ours. Especially once we got through it the first time, we knew what we were doing the second time, so it was a little less stressful. But I never, ever felt like they were ever going to ever leave me. It took a few years for my mother to understand that yes, they're ours. Yes, they're ours forever. They're not going away.
I like that.
No one's going to steal them.
Can
the
I
court
really
says
open my
it.
heart to them? Can I really just love them unconditionally?
I have the
Yeah.
documents.
Right.
We're good. The judge signed off. Everything's good. So there was a little fear of the unknown, but it was easier the second time because we knew a little bit more going in. But yeah, it's.
So I know you have like a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Yes.
Would you consider a third time around?
So here's the thing, I mean, at 57, I'm done with infants, I think. I think I'm done with infants.
I'm totally with you on that one.
So I've floated the idea to my wife about potentially adopting a boy. We have obviously the 2 girls, but of adopting maybe an adolescent boy in a few years, an 8, 10-year-old, something along those lines. I just felt like we stopped at 2 because I felt at that time I thought we could do 2 really well. Just didn't know how we could do 3 financially, and everything else. Fast forward 8 years from the 8-year-old, I think we're in a position where we potentially could do a third, but certainly not an infant third. Those 2 we took home from the hospital.
I totally agree with you. I as an adopted mom, and the work that I do, I totally am done with the babies. We're in the process of being foster parents again, so I'm super excited about that. And they asked, do you want kids? And I'm like, I'm done with the babies. This point forward is teenagers and beyond.
Yeah, like I said, at 57 and the white hair, I'm often referred to as their grandfather. So having an infant at 58 or 59, I don't think that's fair to the child either, to be quite frank.
Unless you're
So
very active. There are some 58-year-olds that act like they're 20.
I get it, and I'm doing my best to stay up with them. But again, I think that potentially down the road, maybe an adolescent boy might be in our future.
I like that. I like that. I heard that the Obamas were trying to adopt a son. So I don't know if that came to full fruition, but I did hear talk about that. I have no insight. I'm just saying what I heard somebody say. It could be very far from the truth. So let's see here. What are some of the next steps for you professionally?
So professionally, again, we've got the 5 Great Greeks here in Las Vegas. We're growing. We have 2 more under construction. We just signed another letter of intent for another store earlier this week. So we're going to continue to grow the brand around Las Vegas. Like I say, we want to get to maybe 12 of them in Las Vegas.
Whoa.
Yeah, and we do have a franchise model as well. We started franchising the brand about 4 years ago. We have 14 open franchisees around the country.
Whoa.
We have another
Amazing.
Yeah, we have another 180 of them sold
What?
that are in various stages of development and opening.
Wow.
We are going international now.
Wow.
We've sold some. We sold Canada. Apparently, there's going to be a Great Greek coming to Pakistan at some point.
What?
So we have our franchise partner has a global footprint, and they're all over the world. We're getting inquiries from the Philippines. We're getting inquiries from Guyana. We have a lot of activity around the world. So Australia is another market that we're looking to break into in the next year or 2.
So my question is, with these people interested in franchising with you, have they tried the food and they want to franchise for that reason, or they just like the idea of being a part, like McDonald's, they just like the
Right.
idea of being a part of the Great Greek?
Well, that's where it starts. So the idea of being a part of it, and that kind of gets the ball rolling. Then we invite them to one of the stores to try the food, and then that's where, look, if you're going to get into this business, you have to have passion. So once they try the food, if they like the concept, if they like the space, we're in Mediterranean space, it's healthier, it's this, that, or the other, and then they try the food and they love the food, that's when it escalates. That's when it really gets going. But yeah, it's just by poking around and looking on websites and franchising, but once we get the food in their mouth, that's when.
That's it.
Well, that's again, if you're going to run a restaurant, you got to love the food.
Right.
So it starts with the interest on one, then we got to feed them, and then that's where they 99 out of 100 say I want to take the next step.
Wow.
And then whether or not they financially can do it or vet it out and whatever the case is, but yeah, that's the process.
And so when they come in, are they flying in on their dime to come and check this out, or do you guys invite them to come?
Yeah, no. We fly them in ourselves, and we pay for the hotel room and their airplane, and they try the food, and like I say, I'll tell them our story, where we came from, where we're going, and all that stuff, and yeah, so it's all part of the process. It's all part of the franchise process, and yeah, it's all on our dime until they start building it, because they're the entrepreneur, they own it, right? We're licensing it to them to go ahead and do it themselves. But they own it. They pay for the construction. They pay for everything else. We just give them the secrets, and they just execute from there.
Yeah, but with all of these expansion going on, have you ever thought about doing the undercover boss kind of thing with your franchisees or the local restaurants?
That'd be fun. I mean,
That would be fun.
I think I'm a little too active in the business. They'd have to really disguise me pretty good, because I love being in the restaurants. I'm very active with all of our franchisees. They all know me. I host them out here. They'd have to do a great makeup job. Right?
Okay, so if by any chance the undercover boss picks up this clip, you remember, you heard it first right here.
Right.
Well, that is going to do it for me. I want you to let us know, how can people find you? Give me a phone number, an address, or whatever. But what's the best way for people to reach out and to experience the Great Greek?
Right. So again, you can go on our website. It's thegreatgreekgrill.com. It shows all of our locations, whether they're in Las Vegas or around the country and soon to be around the world. But yeah, we have the 5 Las Vegas locations. One more coming probably in June. One more first quarter next year. So we'll have 7 in about a year from now. But we have them from Colorado to Florida, Michigan, Minnesota, Texas, Maryland, Ohio. So we're all over the map, and we're growing. We're opening up one in Charleston, South Carolina on Monday. After that, we've got another one in Orlando, then New Jersey, San Antonio's coming up soon. So we've got a lot opening up. But if you just go to thegreatgreekgrill.com, look for locations, you'll see where we're coming.
Absolutely. It has been my honor to get to know you a little bit better, the Great Greek, and all of your professional experiences and your true loves. So, Nick, thank you so much for being a part of Whalers Creations FamVersation, a talk show for teens and young adults. Look forward to seeing you guys next Friday, right here at 3 o'clock. Join us then.
You're listening to FamVersations, conversations with local businesses and professionals from all across Las Vegas and the United States. FamVersations, foster, adopt, mentor, investing in lives of youth.